Welcome, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 here with Hearts of Iron 4, Black Ice, and yes, from the title, you know, it's France. I'm going to be calling this series, I think, French Follies 2, because I've much older, well more than a year ago, a French Follies series, and I name it that, sort of, French being doing follies, or what are perceived as follies, and we'll be talking about that. And then, of course, also the allusion to the Folies Bergère, the sort of Paris nightclub, if you want to call it, I guess. So, better tanks than Germany. No, I would disagree, Martin. But before we get into that, and I will get into that in just a moment, I really would love this series to be a great hit. YouTube's a bit of a mystery, but I know if you hit that like button, whether on the live stream now, if you're watching, and Scooters here, hit the like button, watch some of the video, even if you can't watch it right away, just popping open any videos that comes up and watching a few seconds and hitting the like button really helps. Sharing helps so much when you hit that share button and share it out to some sort of social media. Yeah, I know they can be cancerous, or some, wargaming video game forum or whatever. So please help out my channel. Really do appreciate that. Okay. France had better tanks than Germany when Fall Gelb happened. That's Martin Smith's opinion. And in some metrics, you're right. As sort of standard, generally speaking, for their modern tanks, they were still running about 1,000 FT-17s left over from World War I and the immediate post-war era. But their modern tanks generally had thicker armor, yes. Some of their tanks, the SOMUA and the Char B1 bis, had better guns, absolutely. But does that make them better tanks? Well, better than the Panzer Is, absolutely. Maybe better than the Panzer IIs. Panzer IIs are way overpowered in War Thunder for several reasons, but yeah, the one-man turret, that's Eric is already, Eric knows French tanks, is already alluding to one of the serious problems of a tank. Okay, a tank is a cooperative endeavor. An artillery piece and crew is a cooperative. Yeah, one guy can do, well, at least once the gun, depending on the size of the gun, a small enough gun, one guy can do everything on an artillery piece. Absolutely. But, and one guy can do everything on a tank. But, drive the tank. Oh, I see somebody. Get out of his seat, climb into the gunner's position. Oh, oops, I forgot to load the gun. Get out of the gunner's position, go get the ammo, stick the, he can do all of the things, but obviously it's going to slow it down. Similarly with artillery, proper artillery is, as they call it, a crew-served weapon. It's a crew. Getting it unlimbered from, and I'm not thinking about self-propelled artillery, but that's another thing. Getting it unlimbered from whether it's horse-drawn setup or from a truck or whatever, getting it unlimbered, pointing at the enemy, and handling the shells, doing the aiming of the piece. It's a crew. It's not like a single guy with a rifle. And so how well a crew can handle a tank is an important thing. And that's where French tanks fall down. Their great majority of tanks are the R35 and the H35, and then they're sort of, particularly the H39 is just basically the same thing as a H35, but with a slightly better gun on it. is that they're two-man tanks. So the great majority are two-man tanks. Now, one of the things, and I get this from the Chieftain, very good source. Fatal flanks or stretch. Oh, fatal flaw over stretching their supply lines. Yes, absolutely. But that's different. That's a different question, or a different thing. Supply line stretching versus the tank. So you have two men in a French tank going. That the Chieftain says one of the big reasons he believes that they went with the two-man tank as their primary vehicle is it was cheaper. That you have to pay only two men, cost-wise to drive the tank. I don't know where he gets that from. Now, he does definitely understand, and the France definitely had budgetary issues. But France is specifically setting up to have a mass mobilization army, not a small professional army. So they're already going with lots of people. So I don't get why you can't have more people, why it's going to cost any more to have more people in a tank. Yeah, it's going to cost to have more. You're going to pay 4 crewmen instead of 2 crewmen. Absolutely. But you have 1,000 tanks. That's 2,000 more people. Just take 2,000 people away from some infantry unit somewhere and put them in tanks. So I don't buy that. That's what he's saying, and he may have more documentation on it. I think it's the sort of victory disease that you're seeing with France everywhere else. France works very hard to perfect World War I fighting after World War I is done. And since, in my opinion, and I think most people's opinions, the best tank of World War I is the FT-17. Well, I think it's better to look at it here. Here. This little guy. Now, there's 2 FT-17s. One with a Hotchkiss, basically a 30 caliber, 8mm Lebel, but basically a 30 caliber machine gun, and the other has a little low-powered 37mm cannon in it. And these two, and they're used together, intermixed. They're not separated out. And this is a two-man vehicle. I think they're just simply coming down the road here with the R35, the H35 from Hotchkiss, the Renault 40, and the Hotchkiss 39. I don't know specifically about that, but I do know, meaning I don't know if that actually existed. Maybe. I look over here in my book, but I definitely know the H39 existed, and it is an H35, and it doesn't show up well or right here or correct here, in that it's a longer gun for the 37mm, so it produces a higher velocity round coming out of it. Yeah, I don't think these 40s things, they may have been a prototype, but I don't think they ever got produced. The H39 definitely did. And so, they're just, and they also have both the 37mm gun and a machine gun. And so what they're doing is just perfecting this concept. And they, within the technological limits of the time, they do it. Except for one thing, which is sort of deceptive there, that radio antenna. Most do not have radios in them. That is where they sort of fall apart. LP's here. I'm being Italy in my Italy's start. Take Italy, Ethiopia, take Saudi. Well, not doing World War II since UK would be distracting. Yeah, unrealistic in real terms. But I'm sure a good game strategy. Try to build up your Italian empire. Thank you, Arno. In a second. What is called FT18? Yeah. I have heard it called that as well. Some of my sources just simply refer to both as the FT17. I'm not absolutely certain on that. Oh yeah, no, yeah, gameplay. It sounds like a good one, good thing. That to me means game broken because you shouldn't be able to do that. It's the only non-colonized nations. Yes. Now, Iraq, of course, was colonized by the British in a somewhat indirect way. Iran, not. But, yeah, decent strategy. So, I think they were just in the mindset of, and they didn't, see now, the Italians got a hold of at least a few FT-17s, and they go, yeah, this is really cool, but you know, we could put a faster engine in it. And so the Italians are sort of sports cars of tanks, and this was way back in the, I don't know, 1918 to 1922 type period, you know. Maybe after the end of World War I for some of their production, but immediately following World War I, they produced really fast. And they're, you look at them and they're different almost in every aspect, except that they're the same in that they're, two-man tank, small turret. It just, they don't try to make it a faithful copy for parts to switch back and forth. They just, yeah, this is all good. Let's just do it slightly different. I think they had higher front wheels so they could go over objects, better in front. So it's just a tweaking of this concept, the Italians. So they got, they're the go faster. The French don't. The French, they can make these things go faster. They go, hey, the speed of the FT-17 worked in World War I, so why go faster? So they're perfecting, in many ways, World War I. Now, unfortunately, they end up fighting not World War I again, but World War II, and it doesn't work out for them. And so this is harder to see out of. Very few of them have radios, where basically in 1940, every German tank has a radio in it. Maybe some of the German tanks only have receiver units, meaning they can only, get what the platoon or company commander is saying, but they all have radios in them. Radios are rare in French tanks. They have, if we're looking, I've sort of put the Panzer ones as sort of, oh shit, we need more tanks. We don't have enough modern tanks like the French were using the FTs. In World War II, in a similar sort of vein. And I'm going to have to retitle this episode as a talk about French armor, and then we'll make a new proper first episode. But, so we're discounting, in my opinion, right now, the Panzer 1s and the Panzer 2s as sort of, oh shit, we have to use these things. But the Panzer 3s and 4s, and there was very few Panzer 4s, but a lot of Panzer 3s. Oh, and also the 35Ts and the 38Ts also in this category, that they're better, and that they are those are 4-man tanks. The Germans are 5-man tanks. They have much better cooperation, including I think in most, if not all tanks, they have an intercom system, sort of using little throat mics to talk to each other. Don't know exactly how widespread that was in German tanks. So the crew, there's more of them to do more jobs. So one guy, his job is driving the tank. That's all he has to do, is drive the tank. Another job in a German tank is all he has to do, in proper German one, is load the gun. That's his only job. Now he has secondary things that he can sort of kind of do, is like help maintain the tank when they do maintenance work. Maybe look out that little slit or hatch on the one side of the tank, you know, on the loader side when you're not needing to be loaded. So just to see if there's anybody out there, you just keep looking out the left, Hans. You know, that kind of thing. You know, sort of other little duties there. But basically, in combat, once the thing's getting hot, all he's doing is loading ammo, and the gunner, all he is doing is looking through the gun sights. And he may have multiple sort of gun sights and hatches to look through, but all he's doing is looking through those. And then you have the commander. Now, in the 35 and the 38, you have a commander loader in that he's the same guy, because it's only a 4-man vehicle. The British, yeah, no, won't go there at the moment. But you only have 4 guys. So, and the commander's job is all he's supposed to do is to look around. You know, you don't see me looking around, miming looking around, and see where the enemy is, and see where the friendlies are, and tell the rest of the tank crew, you know, what to do. You know, drive over there, shoot at that thing. You know, that's all he's supposed to do. And then you have a radio operator, bow machine gunner sort of thing. Bow machine gunning is important once you're sort of mixing it up with the enemy troops close in, but mostly he's there, you know, fiddling with the radios and keeping in touch with the other tanks in higher and lower command and doing that stuff. So that makes, in my opinion, German tanks absolutely better. Now, France does have tanks like the Char B1 here. And Char B1 bis is just a modification, yes. And I hope be better positions going through all the good stuff. Are you going to play the dev server for War Thunder since it's up until the 13th? I'm not sure what I'm going to do with that. I might. But tomorrow I'm going to definitely be live streaming and probably want to do it as a group. And since I don't think everybody can get in on it, I don't know that I would do it then. I'll see what I can do. I can maybe make a special video there. We'll see. I'll see what I can do. Sometimes though they state it when it's up and when it's down, and it's not up or down when they've announced. So, hello, Toy Jet. So yeah, the Char tanks are basically, from most angles, impervious to German tank rounds. Yeah, right there at the radiator, the Germans do learn that their anti-tank guns will penetrate it and knock the engine out, and a stationary tank becomes a bunker, and you can just sort of ignore it and go, yeah, there's some tanks over there. We have some machine gunners sort of hiding that if they jump out of the tank to try to like fix it or something, or a repair crew comes up, we'll machine gun them. But otherwise, we'll just let them park there. You know, you can just go on and ignore them. They don't have to, combat them. And the Germans also used the Flak 88s as tank busters against them that worked in just about any angle, any location, blew them apart. Now the SOMUA S-35s, that's starting to get to be a good tank. The problem that really lets it down is that it is still just a one-man turret. Your commander, because you got to have him up to where you can see things. You can't have the commander hiding down in the hole trying to look through one little vision slit somewhere. He has to be able to see around. Is sitting up here. He also has to load the gun. Yeah, he may have, because I think there is 4 people in this vehicle. Correct me if I'm wrong on any of these details, Eric, but I'm pretty sure there's 4 people in the vehicle. And there very well may be an ammo passer that might be able to reach up from down in the hole and load a 47 millimeter round in there. But I'm not betting that that's going to work out well. Oh, at least a 2-man turret, and it would have been much better, Arno. So that, but in some of the ammo storage stored fairly low. So yeah, somebody could pass the ammo up to the commander gunner without having him to crawl around the tank to find different racks of ammo. And then it has your driver up. Excuse me. Driver up front with a second human radio operator. And so that is a much nicer. Oh no, Corona. I hope not. I'm sure not the Ebola, but I hope not Corona. So, now mechanically, I think the R35, the Hotchkiss, and the SOMUA are reasonably sound vehicles. Ergonomically, where the sort of the engines are and transmissions running through the center of the cabin and whatnot, might not be the best, but mechanically they run fine. The SOMUA is a bit of a excuse me, a bit of a cavalry tank, so it goes pretty fast. So it's not a bad tank, especially for a 1935 era tank. It's not bad, but it doesn't come to being good. Now, the U.S. has the advantage over everybody because most of their tanks are being designed in 1940 after the fall of France. So they've already looked around and saw what happened and go, oh yeah, we need these light tanks, we need these medium tanks. And they sort of, learn from everybody's mistakes. France doesn't have that, opportunity. They get there. So yeah, in this special episode about French tanks and their problems. And that's just, how bad it all is. Difference between and the D5, the SOMUA S35, and the Renault D2 BIS, Chungus. Yeah. Now, to guns on the tanks, which is another important element. The SOMUA has a 47. The Char one also has a 47, and then it has the 75 howitzer down in the hole. Those are pretty good. The 47s are pretty good guns for the era, for the very late 1930s, the very early, 1940, 41 era. They're good guns for that era. The Hotchkiss, the 35, and the Renault 35, the R and the H35, have literally the same, some of them at least, if not all of them, have literally the same guns as the World War I Renaults, FTs, whether you want to call them the 18s or the 17s. The main guns, in that they specifically, and this is where budgetary issues come in, not just to say use the same ammunition or the same gun designs. They are either pulling guns out of what are becoming, disused FTs, or they just have more old gun barrels, gun sitting in storage that they're using in these newer vehicles. So they're literally using World War I and immediate post-war period guns in these tanks, and that they're very, very low pressure 37s. The at least the H39 has a longer barrel on it and a slightly bigger powder charge behind what I believe is the same actual projectile. It's so it develops a higher velocity out of it, so it does a bit better, but particularly and it's about 90% of the well, at least 80% if you include even the Chars and the SOMUAs. About 80% of the French tanks, if you include all the FT-17s, have these low velocity 37 millimeter guns. that will have difficulty penetrating German armor. Not impossible, no. And it depends on the round too, and how much of what rounds they have, armor piercing rounds or just high explosives. So it is not a good gun in these terms. So yeah, the 47's doing good. The 37s mostly are bad. A few okay, but still not performing to the velocities of the German 37 millimeter guns. You know, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make this a little bit more interactive here. I want to bring up an image, since we're looking at that, to illustrate. I know I have it. Hopefully I can find it quickly. And yeah, I will be remaking the intro or start. That will actually be gameplay. I hope this is all interesting to you. You guys seem to be listening to my prattling on about tanks. Here, it's not going to take too long. Let's see if I can find it fast. A photo that I collect things, and I've become a collector of digital photos. But I also collect actual things, and right now I'm looking for a digital photo. Where is it here? And I try to, categorize things so that I can find them. And so I'm looking through. I know where it is. I know where it is in which folder. But how quickly can I find it in that folder is the question, because they get filled up with lots of stuff that will illustrate my point greatly. Going through the second time. This is taking too long. Well, let's see if I can find it quickly here. Oh, you're not moving fast enough. Okay. Sorry about the delay. Sorry about the delay. I know it's here. It's just a question of finding it. Keep them entertained, Arno. Tell them a funny story in chat. You can tell them the myth of Denmark. Shouldn't be this far up. Okay, well, how is this being currently put by date? That's what I should have done. Okay, still looking through everything here. It's a really good graphic if I can just find it. Here we go. There we go. There we go. Yeah, let me change it. Okay, here we go. We'll share this. These are basically the 37 millimeter rounds used during World War II. Somebody's collected these, and it's a really cool collection. And here the SA-18 French 37 millimeter. Now they identify it as an FT-17, the R-35, the H-35. That's what they're using here. That's this round. This is the SA-38 37 millimeter, which is the upgun if you're upgunning the R-35 or the H-39. So you can see that there's a lot more powder behind it. The shell looks longer. It probably is. I mean, it's sticking out further from the round. So that tells you that, and it's coming out of a longer barrel, so it's going to go at a higher velocity. This ammunition is not interchangeable. Then you can see here a Japanese 37 millimeter rounds. This is an early Type 94, 5¼ inch long case here to give that, and a later Japanese version with a 6½ inch long case here. So both of these rounds should be performing better than the slow one. Now we see the German Pak 36. That is the 37 millimeter anti-tank gun. The two types of rounds coming out of it, the normal AP here and the APCR round here, and we can see the case here. You can see it gets a little bit narrower at the front end from it is, but it's a much longer case. So you know, right about here and right about here would be flush here. So you know, it's a much higher velocity round coming out of these guns. So we can see the good 37 millimeter French round here, the standard German 37 millimeter round here. Now the Bofors 37, this is the round that the TP7 used, the Polish tank. So their 37s are, at least without rechambering the rounds, do not accept the German rounds. They are a bit different, a little bit longer. So now longer and may also be a little bit fatter coming out. There doesn't absolutely necessarily mean that it's a higher velocity round, because you don't always like fully fill the powder, different powder charges. Now the Czech 37 millimeter, this collector only has the projectile of, but it is a slightly different chambering than the, you know, so the 35T and the 38Ts, 37 millimeter guns are slightly different than the Germans, so they can't use the same ammunition. That is unfortunate for the logistics guys, but I don't quite know whether it was more powerful or less powerful right offhand, but this guy only has the projectile. We can see the projectile is a bit longer than this. Now what this longer normally means that it's a better flight coefficient through the air. And then we have the American rounds here, that they're both fit in the same gun breech. This one is longer. This is the I presume this is the M51 as being newer, and this is the M74, but I'm not absolutely sure. But we can see it's a slightly shorter chambering or powder chambering than the German packs, but it gets a lot fatter in back, so probably it's going to perform, you know, you can look at the ballistic statistics and those are a bit you got to take those with a grain of salt, because who tested them where and when and how effectively. But so we can see the two types, and this is what's being used in the American Stuart tanks up until the end of the war, and probably this one's a bit later coming in. And then the British 2-pounder, which is a 40 millimeter, but it's working as a basically in the 37 millimeter category for vehicles, both in a anti-tank gun role, you know, a towed anti-tank gun, quick firing 2-pounders, and a, you know, in-tank gun. And so we see a, not just, the big difference isn't really the 3 millimeters larger diameter of the projectile, it's a lot more powder behind, or it's a longer case. And so I don't know quite the volume fill of this versus the volume fill of that, but it's a longer case. So these are basically what we're looking at. There is no Soviet 30. I know the main round, they were using 45 millimeter rounds. I think they had some 37s or something close to that. But this collector doesn't have it. But just to show you what this collector did, and I actually added from text that was below the photos the text to this image here, just to give you a perspective of how the different ammos look and work, and how these guns compared to the German guns, the German's going to be a whole lot more penetrative. And the bigger the round here, potentially carry more explosive if you're talking about a high explosive round or a penetrating round with an explosive filler. We'll just go back to the game here. So, yeah, I hope that was of interest and worth my time to show you. You can put in tank. Okay, yeah, I'll put in more talk on the Discord server. Arno, would you like to, in both, it's a little harder for me to cut and paste into the things, paste a link to our Discord server in both YouTube and Twitch? That would be good. Cool. You can put that in there. What I really like about that one particular picture, because I have other pictures, but is that they are all physically sitting next to each other, so I don't have to resize, and for comparison. Because that's what's really powerful about that picture, is that you're seeing them sized exactly equally as, thanks Arno, as they really were. And so, it's not 100% of the story, because you can have a round that's a high explosive round that won't penetrate very well, or you can have a round that is an armor piercing round, but it's just not designed or made with like good, it's just sort of junk steel versus a super high quality steel with lots of tungsten added into it that's going to penetrate better. You're coming out of the same powder behind it. Not going in there, but I think, not absolutely sure, but I think the two 50 millimeter guns the Germans used in the Panzer IIIs shoot the same ammo, I think, but it just, they have a longer barrel on one. They went to longer barrels, so that the longer barrel has the ability to build up more pressure before it leaves, so it's going to perform better out of it. So it's, the actual physical gun does matter as well, not just the ammo's coming out of it. So there's a lot of variations, but that just sort of shows you what's going on in the world. And some of those, like the Stuart tanks, which, yes, they did, the Chaffee, the M24 was coming out and starting to be used, by the Battle of the Bulge type era, but at the very end. But they were still using lots of Stuarts to the end of the war. So those two American 37s were in frontline service in a reconnaissance role up until the end. The Germans basically are done with using any 37 millimeters rounds, except for, we have these 20 anti-tank guns here, and the Soviets are coming to our little town that we're, and so emergency use, but no longer as a frontline, want to use it. And they even put on a big grenade projectile thing that you load on the muzzle of a 37 millimeter gun and shoot it with a blank round as an anti-tank thing, as sort of a ability at short ranges to kill armor. You're going to take Turkey. Okay. Actually, Turkey was rather anti-Italian because they were afraid that Italy might decide to go in and tank. Thanks, Arno. So that Discord channel is open to everybody who wants to join. It's a getting better and better place to find either squad up with people on War Thunder or find opponents for Hearts of Iron. And I will because I did make a room or a text channel for IKB to post railway videos. And if something more technical, can always get Eric to help me. Thank you, Eric, for being such a great support on our Discord. He's the main Discord manager there. It's setting things up. But we'll add channels, whether for particular interest or just if we need more text or chat channels, audio for people to play. So I want it to be a hangout for as many of you who want to. And so yeah, you can put the stuff there. Just whether it's War Talk is sort of in the War Thunder section, if that's sort of tanks specifically, or if it's more of a Hearts of Iron, there's the Hoist section, or just some other general sections. You can put the appropriate stuff. So share anything relatively appropriate, and so the moderators have the final say there. I've not had to overrule any of my moderators because I have great ones like Arno and Ari and a few others. So yeah, thanks everyone. Okay, well this is going to be the end of our longish but hopefully interesting talk on French tanks. Again, like, share, subscribe. I'm going to make another start to playing this scenario. That'll be the first episode release. So thanks everyone. Yeah, and of course the live chat, we're going to keep going.